Hey guys, we're going to be taking a look at the Vicious Syndicate report number 232, and just for reference here, you can see this is my current rank, 553. These are going to be my opinions based on what I'm seeing at the rank that I'm playing, and of course, you might be experiencing something different based on the section of the ladder that you're playing in, because really, we're all in our own pocket meta. But with that, we're going to jump straight into the meta report. Before I go any farther, I just want to make sure you know I'm not associated with Vicious Syndicate in any way whatsoever. I don't have anything to do with the creation of the report. I don't, do any work for them. I don't contribute in any way. I'm just a fan of what they do. Vicious Syndicate, of course, the most influential publication within the Hearthstone community. So this report is the work of all of these hard-working people right here. Be sure to show them some love if you see them around the internet and in different places and in game. And we're going to jump back up to the top of the report here. Number of games, 535,000, still a solid number. This kind of tells me that people are still enjoying Hearthstone, enjoying the meta. Usually this number will dip down to below 300,000, when people are just like taking a break from the game because they're tired of the meta. So taking a look at the class and archetype distribution here, you can see right now Rogue at all ranks, most popular decks in the game. Thief Rogue number 1, and then we've got people out here playing Bomb Rogue. And then you can see going down the line, Warrior's popular, Paladin, Cursed Warlock. That's actually a little bit surprising to me. I don't see too many Warlocks, and you can see the difference. Warlock actually the least played class in the top 1K legend. Big Beast Hunter out there, so on and so forth down the list. So no real surprise. People really like Thief Rogue. It is a fun class to play. It's pretty powerful. Those early nulls, definitely strong. And then just being able to play with the created by spells, jackpot, things like that. You can really just create things to be able to win games, and that's fun for the person doing it, and maybe not so fun if you're on the receiving end of a loss because of, created by. But definitely an enjoyable deck to play. Control Warrior, man, I really hate to see this number so high. Control Warrior, like, people that play Control Warrior, to me, they're almost like griefers, man, because the games are so long. And one of the best things for me about Hearthstone is the quick games. If I sit down, I used to play League of Legends. Sit down for League of Legends, back when I played, games were like 45 minutes or an hour. I don't know if that's true now, but when I used to play. And it's just too long. I don't have that kind of time to spend on one individual game. But you get into people that are playing Control Warrior, they'll rope and armor up on turn 2, when they have no plays whatsoever. There is nothing that Control Warrior can do on turn 2, unless their deck is playing a Blacksmith Hammer and they can trade it. They'll rope and armor up. And it just absolutely, it like crushes my soul. I've always felt like people playing Control Warrior are griefing. I've played Control Warrior, when it was really good, but I try to stay away from it. The games are just too long. But moving on, we're going to get down to the class frequency discussion. Throne of Tides launched a tide of masquerading rogues. I think we've all seen it. It seems to have calmed down, though, at least against the people that I'm playing against. I don't see rogue as often as I was when the null buffs came back through, buffing it up back to its original state. 20% play rate throughout most of the ladder, so 1 in 5 of our games are going to be against Rogue. Again, I'm not actually seeing that. And 30% at Legend, again, just not seeing it. That's almost 1 out of 3. I really don't see that many Rogues. Bomb Rogue incorporated Shatter Shambler, got some early traction, but has been declining since. That's been my experience as well. I don't see as many Bomb Rogues, which kind of hurts me. I really love that Bomb Rogue deck. It's just so fun and so strong. Thief Rogue, highly diverse cluster. Unfortunately, we couldn't separate into subcategories. So the problem with Thief Rogue is there's a couple of different variants, and if they only play a couple cards difference, if those cards aren't actually played in the game, then these tracking algorithms can't differentiate one list from another because so many of the cards are similar. So Vicious Syndicate also seeing that same thing. So they either have to use only user side data and not opponent data, or you just have to make some assumptions about what the deck is. That's going to affect win rates and things like that. So just an interesting little tidbit when it comes to actually collecting the data. Of course, Blizzard is the only entity that's going to have all the data, and as far as I know, they don't release that to anybody. Mini builds mixed between the two. Impossible combination, or every possible combination of cards has been attempted. Games end in blowouts without revealing what a certain opponent was piloting. We just kind of talked about that a little bit. Warrior's second popular most class in the format, Control Warrior being the dominant archetype. Control Warrior is like the only thing that I see. I think maybe the first day of the season I saw one Pirate Warrior, but Control is really the only thing that I see. So when I see a Warrior, I'm expecting it to be control, and I know that I'm going to be in for a longer game, unfortunately. Demon Hunter has been revived by the mini-set, looking to establish itself as the third most popular class at Legend. Fell Demon Hunter risen from the ashes of Drekthar, utilizing a new cheese package with Carry a Fell Soul and experimenting with new cards. Demon Hunter is definitely a lot stronger than it was before the mini-set released. Carry a Fell Soul on 6, depending on what class you're playing and what's going on with the state of the board, sometimes Fell Soul on 6 just ends the game, because the only demon that's in this Demon Hunter deck is the Colossal Xylag, and she copies that, puts the 1/2s on the board that, just spray 2 damage all over the place. It's just really, really strong. There's a big difference between Carria on 6 and actually Xylag on 7, so that's definitely been a good pickup for this Demon Hunter deck. If you're looking for an aggressive deck, Fell Demon Hunter is back. Still a couple of different versions, though, I think, as far as whether or not they want to run Jace. Priest has changed the least. Naga Priest looks like the serious ladder choice. Boar Priest displaying its higher play rate at top Legend. Boar Priest enthusiasts say it's like the strongest deck out there. And honestly, some individual people have the stats to prove it. Overall, it's probably not a good choice for most people just because of how hard it is to be able to play that deck. The decision-making trees get really, really expansive and complicated when you're playing that deck. I've heard some people say it takes 100 to 200 games to be able to master it. That's a lot of games, especially if you're a casual player and you're only playing a handful of games a day. Probably not even worth it to try to pick up Boar Priest. It's just too time consuming to be able to get good at the deck. And, at only a couple of games a day. Next expansion comes out, or heck, maybe even some of the key cards actually rotate before you can get that many games to be able to get good at the deck. Holy Paladin, still noticeable throughout the ladder. I actually never see Holy Paladin. Experimenting with Light Ray and Myrmidon. Deck is dwarfed by the presence of Control Warrior. Pretty much if you're looking for a control deck, Control Warrior is the deck to go to. Holy Paladin is good, but Control Warrior is just better in every single way. So, only difference would be, it could be collection based. If you have the Holy Paladin cards and not the Warrior cards, Holy Paladin certainly a fine choice, but Control Warrior definitely stronger in that regard. Druid is the least popular class in the game until Legend, where the class spikes a bit in its play rate. So the interesting thing about Druid is really popular when Druid has a good aggro deck. Then you'll see it all over the ladder. But right now, Druid just doesn't have a good and reliable aggro deck. The rotation of Arbor Up really, really hurt Druid. It doesn't have a good way to be able to close out games for these aggro board-based decks. And so pretty much all that you're seeing left now is Celestial Alignment Druid at top Legend, and people are just using it to farm Warriors and Boar Priests. So probably no real reason to be playing Druid outside of very, very high Legend, unless you just really, really enjoy the deck and have fun with it. And I'll stop right here and say that most of my comments come from the standpoint of trying to get a good rank or get a better rank in Hearthstone. And it doesn't matter if you're Legend or if you're Gold, Silver, Platinum, whatever the case may be. I'm always trying to get my rank better, while also trying to do it, maybe with not necessarily like unique off-meta decks, but a lot of times I can't just jam one single deck. I try to play different decks, and that's where I get into a little bit of trouble. Trying to grow my rank. There's one deck, I play it well, I win with it, and then I get a little bit bored of it. I try to play a different deck, or maybe I try to invent something of my own, and then I lose games. So that's kind of where I tend to tank my ranks. Burn Shaman popped up first day of the mini set, mostly to abuse a bug in bioluminescence. That was really disappointing, by the way. I saw like some well-known prominent members of the Hearthstone community. They knew it was bugged, and they continued to play it to hit Legend on that first day of the season, and possibly even to get into a position to camp a top 50 finish. I saw people who are regular Masters Tour participants abusing this bug to be able to win games and get a better rank, and it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, to be honest. I didn't touch this when it was bugged, and just super, super sad. And to me, I really feel like it hurts the competitive integrity of the game. So you have a lot of streamers out there who are trying to convince the community that the worst form of cheating is actually stream sniping. And, I'm opposed to stream sniping. I don't defend it in any way. They're right. It shouldn't be happening, but it's hard to determine who's doing it unless they're just like bragging about it or they post a video of themselves doing it. But this was very, very blatant. I'm going to call it cheating. To me, a known exploit, abusing a known exploit is cheating. And, you had competitive players competing in Master Tours, and they're abusing this to get a rank on the ladder, and the ladder actually matters for competitive play. So I thought this was kind of a blight on the competitive integrity of Hearthstone. forever, even though it was a small amount of time that it was in the game. So that's just me, but very, very disappointing to see. And some of the people that I saw doing it, again, just totally disappointed. Since the hotfix deck has declined into non-existence, some experiments can be found with Clownfish, both in Battlecry control decks, as well as tribal and aggressive deck. I actually played the aggressive tribal Murloc deck on the first day of the ladder and was destroying with it for the first couple of hours, and then people kind of realized what I was doing, and my success rate with that deck went way down. But I think I had one of the highest new season win rates I've ever had with a deck. I flew up to about Diamond 5, and then people kind of caught on to oh, hey, there's Uncorrupt. I know he's playing this aggro Murloc Shaman, so they kind of knew what to do against me there, and I stalled out just a little bit. Still a fun deck, though. Fun deck to play. Probably just not going to be able to get there, though, without some adjustments, at least to the pure Murloc deck that I was playing. Not much happening in Mage. Mech Mage occupies lower ranks, disappears at higher on the ladder, where you almost always meet a Naga Mage. Continued split between Ignite and Wildfire, many favoring Ignite due to the famed individual success in recent tournaments. So one thing that I would say about Naga Mage, I've heard people talk about this thing being a high skill deck, and I disagree with that because, it's kind of like if you're telling your friend the story of what happened in the game, it's like, man, they played the Spite Lash, and then they played a Naga, and then they played a spell, and then they played a Naga, and then they played a spell, and I thought my opponent was going to get confused, maybe they played in the wrong order and they would mess up and not get the mana, but they just kept going. Naga, spell. There is some skill based on how you're ordering your Nagas and your spells. There's going to be some skill based on Discover. I really don't think it's as much as people try to claim that it is. In a lot of situations, just making a wide board of Nagas, just by going Naga spell, regardless of what you're playing, it's going to be able to win a lot of games. So there might be a few percentage points at the very, very top end of the ladder, but I really don't think that the skill is necessarily there in Naga Mage. And I think sometimes it's one of those decks that can just gift you the win based on how things go. Hunter is mostly comprised of big beasts. That's, it doesn't happen very much throughout the history of Hearthstone. There's almost always some kind of aggro hunter, and it just hasn't been the case. Maybe for the last several months now, aggro hunter hasn't been seeing a whole lot of play just because aggro demon hunter has actually been significantly better. So it's interesting to see, big beast hunter, kind of a more mid-range hunter deck. I'm sure, the hunter class specialists are really enjoying having those cards to play with and actually being a pretty decent and serviceable deck. Mostly at lower ranks, disappears at higher levels of play. Experimentation with new cards in the class is low, so potentially there could be some bombshell cards that aren't being played in these hunter lists that could actually push the deck to being even better. And there's definitely some people playing this big beast hunter deck at very, very high ranks and doing very well with it. So hopefully more people start playing it and try to refine the deck a little bit more. It could be an actual sleeper in the meta. Warlock is a popular class on the ladder. Higher you climb, the less you see. Top legend, least common opponent you'll face. Curse Warlock drastically declines. Murloc Warlock disappears, not a good look. The thing that I'll say about Curse Warlock, like Abyssal Warlock, I personally have just a tremendous win rate against Control Warrior. I think it's very, very hard for the Control Warrior to be able to win that matchup because of the amount of damage that you can do. So it kind of depends on how your opponent is playing. If they're able to pressure your life total in some way or another, I think it can be harder, but most of the time you're just looking for ways to set up lethal. Especially the list that I was playing was like a hybrid list. I was also running Curse of Agony, and just being able to chip away their armor with the agonies being drawn out of their deck. I had a lot of fun with it, and again, just really, really good against Control Warrior, but that may have been something that was just unique to my personal experience. Haven't really seen other people having that kind of experience, so Warlock unfortunately appears to just not be doing too well right now with the cards they have access to. Matchup win rates here, you can see the heat map. One of the things that really surprised me was looking at Rogue, Bomb Rogue, so many bad matchups here, and just like things that I don't agree with. I won't get into it. I'm not going to turn this into another Bomb Rogue video. I know you're probably sick of hearing me talking about it. I just love the deck, and I feel like that, we could do better than this if the deck is being played a little bit better. And at Legend, Bomb Rogue not seeing a whole lot of play, and you can see just how limited the matchups are for it, just based on other decks that are being played, and of course the data being collected by Vicious Syndicate. So pretty interesting things going on here. Control Warrior, the only really, really bad matchup is going to be against Boar Priest, and it should also be bad against Celestial Druid, which I believe they are calling Ramp Druid right here. Also a bad matchup. Paladin is supposedly bad, but I've seen Meaty, if you're familiar with Meaty, very, very high legend player on the European server. He's almost always in the top 10. He loves this Control Warrior deck, and I believe he said that he just doesn't understand why Control Warrior doesn't have a significantly better win rate against like Mech Paladin and Handbuff Paladin. He believes he's got some things figured out that maybe the rest of the community doesn't, so pretty interesting to look at there. Quest Warrior, you can see, still has a lot of green on its matchup spread at all ranks. When you get to Legends, just nobody playing it. There's no data available whatsoever. So Quest Warrior still doing pretty well for itself, depending on what rank you might be playing at. Going down to the power rankings. So these power rankings, their definition of Tier 1 is a 52% win rate or better. This is going to be the win rates right here. And then Tier 2 is between 50 and 52. 3 is between 50 and 47. And then less than 47 are going to be these decks. So Control Warrior, they're saying, is actually the best deck in the meta, most powerful, followed by Fell Demon Hunter. And then Tier 2, Naga Priest, Holy Paladin, Handbuff, and Naga Mage. So those are the best decks at top 1K Legend. You look at Legend, pretty similar. Holy Paladin comes up to Tier 1. And then Diamond 1 to Diamond 4. Mech Paladin sneaking in at Tier 1. So those are the better decks. If you're actually just trying to get a better rank, you know, break into new ground to get to a rank maybe that you've never had before, regardless of what that might be, you know, you can take a look at these tabs, select the deck that you have the cards for, something that's going to be strong for the bracket that you're in, to be able to push through to those new levels. And, you know, if you're something less than Diamond 1, I would just look at this. You know, Diamond 1 to Diamond 4, usually there's a lot of aggro, people trying to break into Legend, but these decks are still going to be good at the rank you're playing at. So if you have the cards, you know, try to play something from Tier 1, Tier 2, be able to get that better rank and progress your way through the ladder. Metascore, we're just going to skip this. And power ranking discussion, Control Warrior looks insane, and the deck is not refined. They're saying Control Warrior is going to get better, which is depressing because the stronger a deck is, the more people are going to be playing it. I really don't like this deck. Hate playing against this deck. And the gap in power between Control Warrior and the second best deck looks significant. There's room for the format to perform better against Warrior. There are answers to this deck at every level. Thief Rogue can do better. Naga Priest is a soft counter that doesn't see as much play as it should. Naga Priest, strong deck. You can check that out. I don't think there's a whole lot of expensive cards in that deck either. Not sure on the dust cost, but you know, strong deck, relatively cheap, I think. It does play Lady Vosh, that is a legendary card, but outside of that, I'd have to look at a list. Mech and Handbuff Paladin can punish Warrior as well, though they drop off at higher levels. Boar Priest and Druid are the hard counters, but they don't have well-rounded matchups. So if you're just looking to counter Warrior, you know, Boar Priest and Druid are good, but you're probably not going to see enough Warrior on the ladder for that to actually pay off for you. You're probably actually going to be donating some games just because you're not seeing enough Warriors. So much work to do with Thief Rogue. Archetype is a mess. There's just people playing so many different cards, so many different lists. Overall win rate doesn't tell us enough about its true strength against the field. We will note that the strongest build of the Archetype hits close to 52% win rate, making it borderline Tier 1. So they're saying Thief Rogue is just right there if people clean up their lists a little bit and play what's better. Matchup against Warrior can get better, thanks to one specific card that we'll talk about later. Another build estimated to hit 50% mark while running Stash and Tess. That would put them in the Tier 2 bracket. Finally, these cards featured in a deck that isn't complete junk, so definitely fun to be able to play some of those random cards. And they're saying that they've discovered a deck that's you know, has a decent win rate. You're going to win more games than you lose, so that's pretty interesting. And good news if you like you know, decks that are a little bit more random. Thief Rogue, one of the strongest decks in the format post-refinement. Whether it will ever complete that refinement is a legitimate question. So again, people are just playing so many different things, it's hard to find out what's going to be best based on the data. So that's pretty interesting. You don't normally see them draw that conclusion that a deck wouldn't finish its refinement just because there's going to be new cards coming and things are going to change again. Could also be balance adjustments. You know, nothing official yet, but something could be happening there. Demon Hunter is back. Fell Demon Hunter looking like one of the strongest decks in the format, second only to Control Warrior at Legend, and Tier 1 across all the ladders. So Fell Demon Hunter, they're going to be quick games. They're going to help you to gain ranks, again, quickly. So definitely a deck you might want to look into, again, if you have the cards to be able to put it together. Matchup spread is also very well rounded, and what's noticeable about the crucial unfavorables, which are the control decks and Big Beast Hunter, is that they're much improved by Rust Rot Viper. So Rust Rot, you're going to be able to break the carry a weapon to make sure your damage is going to be getting through all the way. Control Warrior, breaking their weapon just cuts off their card draw. You know, they play a weapon, they maybe swing with it once, and then use Forged in Flame to draw, you know, 3 or possibly even 5 cards from a Blacksmith Hammer or the Rukara weapon. So just shutting down their card draw and try to keep in the Control Warrior on a small number of cards goes a long way, really, for every deck. Not every deck can afford to run a Rustrot Viper, though. So if you are against Control Warrior, if they play a weapon and you have a Viper in hand, you know, every situation is different. No such thing as a global rule, but jamming that Viper is going to be a pretty powerful play just to make sure that they can't draw more cards off the weapon. Naga Priest underrated. We think the deck doesn't see much play because players are scared off by the popularity of Thief Rogue. Thief Rogue, of course, has a good matchup against Naga Priest. With Naga Priest, you have to be able to stick Nagas so that you can land those Serpent Wig buffs. And with Thief Rogue, you know, they have the Knolls, and they're also running like Tooth of Nefarian. Some of the lists are running Wicked Stab, so they're going to have removal. And, you know, as they continue to widen their own board and be able to do damage face, if that Naga Priest can't stick a minion, you're not going to be able to beat the Thief Rogue. So Naga Priest has no comeback mechanic. There's no Zarella. There's no... I don't think they're running Wild Pyromancers either, so there's no way for a Naga Priest to be able to deal with a wide board. So Naga Priest does well against Control Warrior, generally not a polarizing deck that has a good chance against most opponents. Burn Shaman toughest matchup is gone. Now that people can't cheat, Naga Priest is in a better place, and probably every deck is in a better place now that people can't cheat with an exploit of a bugged card. Boar Priest is a hard warrior counter, but has issues against other opponents. Yep, Druid would follow soon to hard counter the Boar Priest. Difficult to find a niche where it can consistently excel on ladder, mostly a tournament deck at its current state. So Boar Priest, you know, it's always going to be around. Again, some people swear by it, some people just play it at a really high level. You got to invest a lot of time in it, though. Quest Priest, not terrible when you build it well. We found a potential build within the cluster of garbage. I think they're saying the average person is playing a really, really bad version of Quest Priest. The people that are playing it might be as good as Tier 3 when optimized, so coming, you know, maybe sneaking in close to that 50% win rate. And again, that's just an aggregated win rate from a lot of data, a lot of different lists, a lot of different deck pilots. It's possible that you're playing a Quest Priest that's actually really good. Maybe you have a 51% win rate, maybe even more. Again, it's individual stats are going to vary wildly from, you know, these aggregated stats of lots of people with lots of different decks. So sometimes in your own pocket meta, you can just be destroying with a list that's actually a bad list in the big scheme of things. So very interesting and important to keep in mind. I find as more time goes by, I've always been big on data and trusting the data and really going with the data. But as more time goes by, I find myself becoming more and more of a data denier. I want to talk about that again just a little bit farther down here. Oh, I skipped my favorite part. Bomb Rogue doesn't seem that strong. Deck has major issues, Control Warrior and Holy Paladin the way on it. Outside of these struggles, it looks balanced. People calling for nerfs, they think the deck is toxic or oppressive. It looks balanced, with a lot of close matchups. Initially, this deck seemed like hot garbage, with a couple of small tweaks, it could stick around. It destroys passive decks that don't have sustain, meaning they don't have healing, armor gain like the control decks. Big improvements in its matchup spread since our last podcast was recorded, so I disagree strongly with this. I love Bomb Rogue. I think that the weaknesses are overstated. I don't know if it's the way people are playing it. There's something going on with the data. The data that they have says that it's bad. That is not my experience. The deck is just really, really good, and this is, you know, where I come in to talk about, you know, kind of become a data denier. I understand where the Boar Priests are coming from now, but sometimes, you know, you just love something and maybe you overlook its flaws. Could be what's happening here, but Bomb Rogue, really, really good deck. If you're interested in more information about it, I've got several videos up about Bomb Rogue and the different iterations since it first came into play with the Naval Mine. And, you know, talking about the weaknesses being overstated, you know, Control Warrior isn't as bad as the matchup was. And if you look back up here, they're talking about Warriors... Warriors could be performing better, but when you look at what they're talking about cutting, it may actually be in a different section, but they're actually talking about cutting some of the armor gain, like cutting a heavy plate and things like that. That's going to hurt them in the Bomb Rogue matchup. So I think that might be a little bit overstated, especially with the list that Vicious Syndicate is potentially pushing. And also keeping in mind, Vicious Syndicate has a big impact on what people are playing. You know, people are pretty likely to take this advice just because this report is so well done and so based in data. And Holy Paladin, I never see Holy Paladin. If you look back up at the top, I think at all ranks, Holy Paladin is 3% of all decks. And, you know, even in top 1000 Legend, it's like, I think, a 4.3%. So they're basically telling me that 1 out of 24, 1 out of 25 games, I'm going to have a bad matchup against Holy Paladin. First of all, I don't think the matchup is as bad. I think that's a little bit overstated. And one bad matchup out of 25 games, I can live with that. That's going to happen. That's just card games. That's just Hearthstone. So coming back down, Holy Paladin sits in Control Warrior Shadow. Control Warrior, it's just a better control deck in every single way. Control Warrior does have a lot of legendaries in it, though. It's probably going to be a limiting factor for a lot of people, unless you have a pretty extensive card collection. So Holy Paladin could be a good substitute, although, you know, there are some legendaries run in that as well, and other expensive or high dust cost cards. Yep, and they go on to say, has issues seeing justification with superior defensive powerhouse, meaning Control Warrior. Things could move in a positive direction if Naga Priest sees more play, because Warrior's going to struggle with that. Paladin, certainly better against Naga Priest because you have equalities and ways to be able to clear those big minions that Warrior may just not have. If Warrior can't get enough armor to be able to shield slam or Onyxian Drake, a really, really big priest minion, they can just lose to one single big minion. And those minions can get big really, really fast with the Serpent Wigs coming down, sometimes at 0 mana, and of course Bless to be able to buff the attack of that minion that's being lifted up by the Serpent Wigs. We doubt there will be a significant Warrior decline as a result. Some of the hardest Warrior counters tend to counter Paladin too, so Control Warrior, still just the better control deck. Mech Paladin is a strong Control Warrior counter. Initially seemed like Warrior had a decent grasp on the matchup, but in the arms race of the Warrior mirror, it's quickly reversed any such movement. Handbuff Paladin, another decent Warrior counter. I really feel like Handbuff Paladin is a strong deck that nobody's playing. I'm not sure how much data there is on it. I don't think it's much, but my experience with Handbuff Paladin is that it's very, very good, and that you know, you can beat some of the decks that are pretty prevalent in the meta out there. Another decent Warrior counter, bit on the softer side, so soft counter to Warrior. Obvious problem is that the deck's skill ceiling is low, and they lose a lot of matchup percentages against multiple decks at higher levels of play where Control Warrior is most popular. Suspect they'll remain very strong outside of Legend, but find themselves settled into Tier 2, Tier 3 status at top Legend. So Mech Paladin, Handbuff Paladin, according to Vicious Syndicate, they're saying these might be good decks to climb on the ladder with, at least until you get to Legend. So definitely something to keep in mind there. Druid seems to have only one competitive role, meaning tournaments, serve as a hard counter to Control Warrior Boar Priest. So if you're crafting a tournament lineup and you're specifically trying to target Control Warrior and or Boar Priest, you know, Druid is going to have a place in your lineup, of course, with very specific other decks to be able to go along with it. Absolutely no reason to play the class otherwise, which is a bit sad. Burn Shaman was Tier 1 for a day because of the bug. Now it's gone. Low sample. Following the hotfix suggests it's unplayable. Control Shaman isn't looking good. Murloc Shaman only decent at low MMR. Kind of disagree with that. I've seen Murloc Shaman performing very well. There's a streamer who was just jamming it on rank 1. He might actually still just be jamming it day after day on rank 1 on the, I think he's playing on the NA server. So you can definitely win games with Murloc Shaman, but you know, you're looking at playing like, you know, Bolner, Bran. It's not just Murlocs. I think it runs Snowfall Guardians. It's going to run the Brilliant Macaws as well. Has some very, very strong combo things that it can do, and it can also just spend mana and go wide on board, which again is just going to win games. So I don't think it's as bad as they're coming out here. You just have to get the right list of Murloc Shaman. Naga Mage looks solid. Only irony is that Wildfire continues to perform better than Ignite despite all the recent hype. This is true at all levels of play, so if you're playing Naga Mage, Wildfire is going to be the way to go. Mech Mage falls off a cliff at higher ranks. You see that with a lot of the tribal decks. You know, Pirate Warrior, again, pirates are a tribe. Mech Mage, the Mech tribe. Mech Paladin, the Mech tribe. All of these things are good at lower ranks, but then once you get to Legend, you just don't have the ability to be able to outplay your opponent, because your opponent knows exactly what you can do. They know how to counter it. And so, you know, just not as good once you get to Legend, but could be a good deck. Again, quick games, like I'm a fan of, to be able to get to Legend, or just to get to your own personal best rank, you know. Not everybody even cares about getting to Legend, but I think the average person probably cares about a personal best rank, would be my guess. Big Beast Hunter, quite good outside of Legend, not so good at Legend. Similar issue of low skill. though not as drastic as other examples. Quest Hunter's toast. Seen some experimentation with Multicaster. It looks really, really bad. Dragonbane shot nerf, killed the deck. Shell Shot, the new card, I've seen people playing that. Apparently the data's just saying Quest Hunter, just not in a good spot. It's just dead, unless they get some new spells when new cards roll around. Or again, you know, if there's buffs, nerfs, so on and so forth. Warlock back to full dumpster tier. Curse is bad, even at rank brackets where it's popular. Murloc Warlock, much like Murloc Shaman, decent at low MMR, and then falls off. So you can kind of see there, Vicious Syndicate, they're saying Control Warrior, tier 1 deck, Fell Demon Hunter, tier 1 deck, and then everything else kind of falls in somewhere behind it. Again, it's going to depend on what rank you're playing at. Lots of good information in this report. I'm not going to continue going, but if you scroll down here, you know, you'll get into the class analysis and deck list. So, you know, if you want to see like what they're saying the Jackpot Stash Thief Rogue is, you'll be able to find a deck list here. Vicious Syndicate, great place to come if you're just looking for a deck list. Sometimes it's just a good place to start. You might want to tweak the list based on what you're seeing on the ladder and your own personal preferences. And you can actually copy the deck code so they can help you get it into Hearthstone a little bit more quickly. But that's going to do it for this review of the Vicious Syndicate Meta Report. I'm Uncorrupt. Good luck out on the ladder.